To the September 17th Transportation Committee. So I call this meeting to order at 5 o'clock. We approved the minutes. Everybody get a chance to look at the minutes? Do we need a motion to approve? Remind me how this works, Mark.
Yeah, we don't get that formal here. We just, if anybody's got any comments, feedback, everybody says they're good, we're good. So we don't do any formal.
I'm good.
Thumbs up all around? Okay. Then we'll get right into the committee discussion. So Beacon Hills signage, Mark?
So this is an item we've talked about several times. So in the Beacon Hills neighborhood, we had signs that were there for years. When we were requested a new one, we looked at the overall signage in the whole neighborhood. So as part of that, we then looked and saw that there were some signs that were historically placed that really weren't properly located. As part of that overall discussion, so as part of that review, recommended from this committee to remove those stop signs and then add another one at another location. That was a recommendation from this group, I think, back in the spring, or almost a year now. I think it was last fall. And then went to the town board. The town board approved that, so then that took place. So the stop sign's been removed. We've waited for a significant period of time. I know we've had a resident that still had some concerns, so we've kind of listened to him on that, but then we had this as a held item. So we're just moving it back up, kind of checking with the committee one more time. We've not heard anything further. Mr. Lender, we've heard from a couple of times, is the only one that's come forward with some concern. We can continue to take a look at that, but we've not heard from anyone else. So if there's nothing else to raise, it was just moving it from a held item back to an active item just to close that discussion. And if and when something comes back in the future, we can add it back on our agenda. But this was merely just to kind of say, I think we're good with where we are.
I didn't hear anything over the summer.
Okay.
But now that school has started back, it's possible there'll be those same concerns. But
And I know Brian is on our PCTV committee, and that's right where his daughter gets on the bus stop. And I know you've talked to him, and he said he didn't have any discomfort with his daughter. That was her bus stop, and that's her location. So it sounds like.
Yeah, and I'm actually friends with a neighbor that's lives on that corner in a house, not the townhomes. And she's like, it doesn't make any difference. She says, I noticed that most people still slow down. I mean, after 20 years of me living there, as I go through that intersection, I just slow down because it is an intersection, but I'm so trained to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So unless anybody else has anything, this was just a matter of move it out of held items, put it back as a final discussion item, and then we'll consider this closed for now.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Okay. So Baird Road speeding. Amy?
Yep, I'll take this one. So we got a complaint of speeding on Baird Road in between Wayland and Atlantic. So we did put out the traffic counters. Unfortunately, I think just due to probably wear and tear, the tubes on the counters just weren't giving us accurate data. So now that we've pulled those up, we'll trade those out for new tubes on the traffic counters and hopefully get them down in the next month or two, redo the counts. So unfortunately, that's my update, but look for more info in the future.
Okay. Kirkland Drive. Amy,
I'll
again.
take this one as well. So, yes, another complaint of speeding. This was, I believe, from a resident on Terrell Drive. And I think a lot of what happens on this road is cut-throughs between Bay and Empire. So we did put the traffic counters down on Terrell Drive, and we also put them down on Kirkland Drive. And I do have some data for you guys.
Just while she's pulling it up, the original person concerned was on Kirkland.
Thank you.
They asked us and said, you probably want to check Terrell while you're at it. We've always, checked Terrell every few years. This was a cut through. I think it's gotten a little less so. It used to be there was no left turn arrow or turn pocket bay going on to Empire. So a lot of people cut over to get over to the plaza and everything else now with a left turn pocket and a turn arrow, that's made that movement easier. So hopefully that's an easier, safer route than trying to cut through Terrell. But that, understandably, why people kind of came that way and then cut through the neighborhood, then trying to wait through a whole traffic light and then make a left in the yellow or red to get through it, but I'll let you.
No, yeah,
Sure,
thank you
then.
for that
Yeah.
input. I didn't have that history. So I'll pull up the Kirkland data first. We had the counter sound for a week, so the speed limit there in this whole neighborhood is 25 miles an hour. On Kirkland, we saw that the 85th percentile speed was 27, so not too far off from the actual speed limit. The counters that we put down on Terrell, we saw a little bit of a different story. So again, the speed limit's 25 miles an hour. 85th percentile speed was 36 miles an hour. So I think there's a difference between what we see on Kirkland and Terrell.
And 10,000 cars, that's definitely cut through. There are not 10,000 people that live
No,
in
there's
that
not that many people that live
neighborhood.
there, so that's something, we'll look to the sheriff's office as something they can, add to a patrol list to look at that, or people are, cutting between streets to get through faster. That may add, is some deterrent on the cut through and hopefully more of a deterrent on the speeds through that area.
This might actually be a street to put speed humps on. I know we're not in favor of those.
This might be the only one that
That makes
least-
sense.
would consider. The only thing we need to look at, and I'd want to study harder, is if we put them on Terrell, not saying we are, you're going to force traffic up onto Midland and Kirkland that all
Right.
kind of tie together. So that's, something we'd have to look at in balance is once you put them here, then
Speed bumps on that whole neighborhood, or no?
I think we just that just sets the precedent that, again, we go from having one street with them
Yeah, I
to,
know.
and that's we've always kind of held off on is they're not easy to plow, they're not easy to build, they're not easy
Maintain,
to
I get it.
maintain. People don't like them and drive around them, This is one spot we can look at. I think first is, ask for additional enforcement, to go to that, and then we can do a deeper study into that, but just adding them there, that may push people up to the other side streets, but then if we populate that with speed humps, then, where do we stop? And then that just kind of
Yeah, that's true.
spreads a bit.
Generally, it's not recommended to put speed humps on a street that has parallel streets like this does.
Yeah, that
Or
makes sense. Yep. Didn't they talk about at one point in time making Terrell a dead end at Empire?
We did look a long time ago, but just with traffic and property lines and everything else, that was,
Didn't
it just didn't work out. I know
Okay.
we had done it at Daytona. That was the one, at least that I'm aware of, that we've, had dead-ended at Empire kind of on the other end.
Okay.
I think if Midland and Kirkland actually went through to Bay Road, then that
Be
parallel.
more of a
would be more of a
ish. I mean, you kind of go out of your way, but people are going to, at least in the short term, try to
concern.
find a
Coming
different
back
way.
and
And
looping back around, too much a roundabout, and I, excuse me, I don't see that. If it went all the way through to Bay, yeah, that would be a real.
you're just pushing it from one street to the next. And then I think you went through our calculations. So we do have in our traffic calming manual, we've done that before, the calculations showing based on speed, based on, and Amy's got that, she can kind of walk through the,
Yeah, so this is it's kind of a worksheet from the Penfield Traffic Calming Manual. So based on the type of road that you're looking at, it can be categorized in different ways. So this one is categorized as a feeder road, and then based on the classification, you assign different points to the road based on data such as the 85th percentile speed, volume, and other considerations. So for this one, we saw that the volume got us 1 point, but the speed got us 3 points for this road. And as we've been discussing, we could consider this to be a cut through. So in the end, we ended up with 5 points, and I can pull up the manual here. So in this case, 5 points, education and enforcement measures to be considered. So that would include asking for additional enforcement from the sheriff.
As well as something like the driver feedback machine, which is currently out of
In
service.
use.
it's in use, and that's one of the things that's going to come recurring tonight is we've had requests for the driver feedback cart. We got a new one, which is good news, but right now it's currently the sign, it's also a sign, it's at the DPW, basically telling people to bring their brush to the town hall. So that's a conversation we need to have with the supervisors and the town board is, can we get a different sign for that, or do we need to get a new speed cart? And I also know the sheriff's office has a speed cart, and that's going to come up with Empire Boulevard, is whether they're able to give them some locations and they can kind of use that, because ours is predisposed for probably much of the summer while the construction's going on at the DPW, so we just kind of work on stuff with that. But that's the other typical education method is the feedback cart, as you're driving down the road, and hopefully you're reminding people of what the speed limit is and have them slow down and, you know, make sure they're aware of the speed and not just kind of mindlessly driving and, you know, not paying attention to what the speed limit is.
Or get another sign, maybe. I'm sure we'd find use of it.
Yeah, that's what I say. Maybe we need, that has a sign that would give you your feedback, as well as you can put messages on it along with the speed radar unit on it. Excuse me. You can just buy a feedback sign for informational, and that's maybe what we just need at DPW, so we'll have to talk about that.
Okay. Any more discussion?
So
Did you ask the county if they got any?
Haven't yet. I mean, we can chat with them if they've got something we can use. I know we talked to the state, or there was a neighborhood that has asked the state to put the feedback cart out on Empire Boulevard down the hill. The state said, we don't have anything, talk to the town, and we'll issue it under a permit. We just don't have the feedback cart right now to use it, but, you know, obviously we can talk to the county, and if the county can put it on a county road, then maybe in the short term, you know, if the sheriff's office can.
There was a couple that were out that were being used amongst kind of a shared, you know, use it for a couple weeks and then move it because they lose their effectiveness after a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I know at one time, all of them were broke and spent and junk, but I think they replaced them all, I think.
Okay.
But I don't know the status of it. That can change by the day, right? Someone goes out and it's good one day and it's scrap heap the next.
Yeah. So Jeff, I think before we just jump off of Kirkland, I just want to recap. Basically, Kirkland wouldn't meet the measures for speed humps on it, based on the data,
Speed
based
was
on
good.
the 85th percentile. Terrell is marginal, but I think, you know, asking for sheriff patrols on that, you know, would help that. And then I don't know how many times we've counted Terrell, but you know, it's got to be probably at least 5 or 8. So, you know, it's one that we constantly kind of keep update on, so we can keep that in regular rotation and kind of see if that helps, or, you know, monitor that if we need to do additional enforcement or additional, you know, physical measures on the site. So that was my last statement on Kirkland.
All right, we're good with Kirkland? All right, stop sign request at Poplar Drive
So
in
this
Burroughs.
This
Yeah?
is one that I'm looking to Laurie and Mary to tell me that I'm not crazy.
Which one?
Because I thought we'd talked about this before. So this is coming off of Penfield Road, so the town portion,
Yeah.
turning down, and then before you kind of, and Amy's kind of tracing the path. So as you turn left onto Burroughs, you come down Burroughs, and then there's like a little chicane, and then it turns, and then Burroughs goes down the hill to the bottom, and then you go down to the neighborhood below. I thought years ago we talked about this, and I thought we had, based on the configuration of the road, recommended a stop sign. So as Amy's showing, you're approaching, going west on Burroughs. Poplar is kind of off the left at an angle, and then there really is no traffic control there, and then you kind of got to turn, and then you turn left again to go down Burroughs. So I think it's, you know, kind of in a neighborhood, but I don't think, I mean, at the very least, I think we should do a closer look at it, but I think there should be some, it's not clear if you're on Burroughs, you're continuing to Burroughs, that you're coming to the T and you should stop there. So I thought.
How about an arrow right there at the, where it looks like it tees in front of that tree? You know, an arrow saying like dead end almost, you need to go one way or the other? Those are your
Yeah,
options?
I mean, you could have an arrow there.
Right there in front of that tree?
But then, does Burroughs have the right of way because you're still going on to Burroughs, or does Poplar come in from the left have the right of way as you're coming in from Poplar? So I think we need to look at this one is we need some traffic control, but I thought we'd talked about this
We did
a number of years ago, and I thought we had made a recommendation
Isn't there
for
a
it.
stop sign on the north side going south on Burroughs?
Coming up the hill, there is. So you come up Burroughs to the top of the hill. If you're coming, yeah, you can see it in the distance.
That's what I mean. So,
So there's a stop sign on that side coming up that way.
but at some
that
point, that does not have the right of way.
Poplar is kind of the through street, so I think you may then need to do something similar on that other side.
Yeah, I think that's what we had decided, and it was a few years ago.
Yeah, I just don't think we ever followed through with a resolution and going to the town board for it. So
Yeah.
I think it just kind of died at that point, but I'm thinking it was 10 years ago, 8, 10 years ago. It wasn't,
I think it was been a while.
It's been a while.
it's been a while since that one, so.
Just because of the view, would you do a yield sign instead of stop sign, or?
Well, you got to look at what the, I mean, yes, that is
Yeah.
in places, but you got to look at what your view is either way. So we would go out and do a study and see how much sight distance we've got one way, how much sight distance you got the other way, and then you go to the manual, and the manual says if it's less than this much sight distance, then
I see.
a stop sign's warranted. I know when we looked at Alta Vista and Rossbrook off of Panorama, that one we looked at, and then there were some trees and shrubs in the way that, moved it from being a yield sign to a stop sign, so.
And it's still being used as a cut through. All those people discovered it when you guys were, putting new gutters into Panorama Trail.
Yeah.
That was the cut through there, and it's
People
still
find
being
the other
used.
way to go around, and with
Yep.
with Waze nowadays and Google Maps and all that, everybody,
We had a yield first, and then we looked in the book, and it said we needed the stop sign because of the site.
yeah. So, yeah, so I think this one, we need to do a little bit further study at this one, analyze it and come back. So this one, I'd say we'll come back with a recommendation at our next meeting here, but we didn't find anything in the minutes about it, but I recommend, or I recall discussing this previously, and then I thought we had recommended something, but we couldn't find it in the minutes to back that up, so we wanted to add it back in, have the discussion. So we'll go through that analysis ahead of the next meeting and then come back with a recommendation for you guys to consider.
Okay. So we'll hold that. Speeding concern on Panorama Trail.
I'll take that. So we received a request from a resident. They live down on the south side of Panorama Trail, closer to Penfield Road, and were concerned about excessive speeding. They did mention that previously they came to this committee and that they were told an electronic speed sign was going to be placed. Subsequently, there were some issues with that sign, and the town doesn't actually have a permanent placement, like one for permanent placement. So they're coming back with the concern again that they're speeding on that south side of Panorama Trail and looking for some assistance. So at this point, for Panorama Trail, when we do traffic counts, we actually have to have flaggers. So that is scheduled with the DPW. So we're looking to get counts done on that portion of Panorama Trail. And that just hasn't happened yet. At this point, we wouldn't ask for enforcement in that area until after counts would be completed.
Okay.
What's the posted speed limit on Panorama Trail?
Down there?
I want to say down,
Varies.
yeah.
Yeah.
Down the street, I think.
I think it's 35.
I think it's 35 at the bottom and 25 at the top
As I
when you,
say, there's different
when you're
sections
Is that
turning
where
on-
the concern is, going down the hill?
It
Down
is.
to
on the
bottom?
lower section of it.
Yeah, the lower section.
Oh, here we go.
35, okay.
35.
So it's not right near, like, next to that intersection, it's near the apartments and the townhomes. Yeah.
and so this is the section they're concerned about speeding?
That's what they brought up. That
Okay. Well, another ditch like was in Panorama Trail earlier. Another ditch that you had, remember that y'all were doing some work there?
Oh.
And that was like you came to a stop and went in.
Yeah. I think
And
that was
a great traffic
That was a
control.
collapsed storm sewer, but sure, I don't want to try that again, but
Yeah, I don't think our DPW wants that either.
no. we had
No, you don't want to do that
traffic
again? Aw, shucks.
Definitely slows you down.
Yeah, yeah.
That was
So
up the hill a ways.
That is the speeding concern on Panorama Trail item. Are there any other questions in that regard? Seeing none. Then we can go on to the next one, which is also on Panorama Trail. They are requesting, it's a resident of the Panorama Townhome, and they'd like 2 speed control devices installed, one as vehicles begin their ascent north on Panorama Trail, and a second as vehicles descend the straight portion going south towards Penfield Road. Their concern is vehicles at high rates of speed and the difficulty to cross, to get to the sidewalk on the west side of Penfield Road. So generally, we need to do a study similar to what Amy did for Kirkland before we would put in any permanent measures. So again, in this situation, I think the next best step is a count of traffic and speed.
Is there any rule like you could come down the hill and cross at the light? Is there any guidelines on how far apart you'd have a crosswalk or to a light?
You mean like space between multiple crosswalks?
I guess so, yeah.
So generally, crosswalks are installed at intersections, ideally that have signals or signage. That's
Yeah.
the safest place to cross. You can potentially have crosswalks elsewhere, but depending on the geometry of the road, site distance, those kinds of things, that can make additional crosswalks unsafe or less safe.
Yeah, maybe that's not the request, but that area is not too far from the light down the hill.
Yeah. So, I mean, Panorama, it is a hilly road. I definitely understand the concern of speed.
Sure.
I think we need to have counts before we can really make any formal determination.
I say we recently did add a crosswalk at the end of Huntington Meadow. But as Sarah said, you got to make sure you got enough sight distance. Just to put a crosswalk in could become more dangerous if the cars can't see the pedestrians. The pedestrians go, well, I got the right of way, and then they're going across the road. And if the cars can't see them, or it's an unsignalized area, or not at an intersection, a mid-block crosswalk, just to have one, could make a safe or a situation more unsafe than it already is. So that's why they're in part of what will be coming up, in the future is talking about our policy and when crosswalks are put in, and some of those, so similar calculation, you're going to take an analytical approach at it and look, here's what the sight distance you have, here's when it's signalized. So other communities have those, so those are policies we'd like to get in and we'll discuss in our future agendas. We just had a sizable agenda tonight and didn't want to shortchange those conversations, so that's why those are done and held, but those are items we want to come up with so we can kind of do, okay, we need counts first, and then we need to look at the number of cars and the sight distance and, go very methodically through that so we make sure that we're putting them and placing them in a, proper location and not making it more unsafe than it already is.
Got it. Okay. Should have brought my glasses. Request for speed trailer in Gebhardt. Am I in the right spot?
Yep.
You sure are. Yeah. We received a complaint from a resident on Gebhardt Road about vehicle speeds. Let's see if I can pull it up. So, yes, I believe it was about vehicle speeds. I believe there is a school and a church here in this area, so I think that was part of the concern about speeding as well. And they requested a speed feedback cart, as we discussed.
Which we are lacking right now.
Yes, we are currently lacking one, but we have discussed a couple of options to
So,
get one
yeah,
moving
we can
forward.
either talk about getting another one or see if the county has one. So we'll keep these in queue, as we've been receiving them and, get to them as soon as we can, but we're just without ours at the current moment.
Okay. Scribner and Embury.
So this is another intersection we've talked about quite often. So we have counted it. And then as we looked at it most recently, the improvements that we have authorized have not been implemented thus far. So we've talked about double posting the signs on either side. Those aren't there yet. So I know we've had requests to escalate up to blinking stop signs and everything else. But as Amy pulls up, we and the board authorized that, so we've got to work with, one, we're reconfirming that's what we want to do. We'll do a resolution, and maybe that's where it fell last time. We'll do a resolution with the town board to authorize double posting those intersections, and then have the DPW go out and implement those. So kind of following our normal escalation, we've got our normal right side stop sign on the intersection. Our recommendation was to double post it, so you'd have a stop sign and a stop sign on either side. Those aren't there. So we need to do those first before, so as you're looking at the intersection, you're looking north on Scribner to Embry. So you've got the stop sign on the right. We're recommending that there would be also a stop sign on the left, so people kind of see both sides of that intersection as they're approaching. There's stop signs on both sides of that intersection, as well as at Embry and Scribner. So that's the first, is get your attention, put them on both sides. You can make the signs larger, and then I know we've had requests to go to blinking and add other stuff to that, but until we implement the initial measures and, make it more visible, we need to do that, let it be there for 6 months, a year, see how that works. We'll do additional counts, and then, if accidents continue to happen or near misses, then we can further escalate. So we did take a look at it the other day and go, okay, the measures we have talked about aren't there, so let's, do those first. I know we've got an email just as recently as last night saying that the stop bars are fading. So as we look to upgrade the signage, we can go back and look to get the stop bars freshened up and on the road. So I'll respond back to the resident, let them know that, we've received their email, and, here's kind of the next steps and measures. So if that all sounds good to the group, we'll move forward with a resolution to the town board to double post on all sides with that, update and refresh the stop bars, and hopefully that'll garner people's better attention, because I know you both personally have watched people drive through, ignore, I know that's something hard for the sheriff's office to sit and wait to
I've seen them sitting in the park watching, and unfortunately, I don't know if you guys ever catch them, but I see people, I almost saw a family crossing this actual spot here on Scribner crossing Embry to get to the park. Little kids on the bikes with the little training wheels and stuff, and somebody's on their phone driving, because you could see their heads down like this. And it's like, what the hell? I mean, luckily they got through the intersection. This person just kept going, didn't even see them. And that's, there's a park, it's a playground. I take my grandkids there, It's like.
Yeah, that's always Dan, the other member, you can only engineer so much. If the person's looking down, even if the stop sign's blinking, the lights, if somebody's not looking out the front windshield of their car.
You need to make stop signs that reach out and slap people upside the head. That's all I
haven't invented those yet, but we can put up as much signage, you can put up as many blinking lights, you can put up flashing strobe lights or whatever, not that we can, but unless people are following the rules of the road, paying attention, put the phone down and look out the windshield.
I know.
There's only so much you can engineer, or so much enforcement. People just need to pay attention and drive looking out the window.
know.
Well, considering this was brought up before, we can expedite this a little bit with the town board.
Let's say that. I'm sure the board, would be, understanding of it. I think we've, shared it with them before, so we'll, move to a resolution for that, to have that happen, and then we'll work with the DPW director and his crew to get those installed as quick as we can, so.
Because that was a while ago already, because when I saw this and I read it, and I actually saw, up until this summer, I had not seen anyone do as you have observed, but I've seen it twice.
Right.
And one slowed down, and it was obviously, it just said, there's no way.
Rolling stop. And
Yeah.
The other one was clearly, went right through. So then I drove through and I looked around, I thought we had that double posted.
Yep, that's when we looked at that again, and we got another email and said, okay, let's stand back and look and see what we're missing or what they're not seeing, and went out to look at trees and said, okay, maybe we need to cut trees back, and maybe we, and go, okay, well, we haven't implemented the posts or the double posting stop signs, let's work on that. At the same time, we can look at, tree trimming or whatever else we need to do, but we kind of just drove through all legs of the intersection, saying, okay, has it gotten overgrown, or people just not seeing it? If that, to your comment, is just somebody
Yeah.
plain ignorance,
It's a
just
cut
driving through the
from-
intersection,
It's a
but,
cut through from Creek to 5 Mile that people,
yeah, that's just,
yeah, they're in a hurry.
What is the
Everybody's in a
town's
hurry.
criteria for a stop-ahead sign?
It's already posted stop ahead.
there should be stop-aheads on those.
Yep.
I don't think they say stop ahead, they're humongous with a stop sign on the signage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you got the
yeah.
stop-ahead.
Yeah.
Well,
So, I mean, if-
So we added those not too long ago.
Yep, but then we talked about the double posting, and I don't
Right.
know if you can go to
And didn't we put in
Sweet's at
bigger stop
Harris.
signs than normal?
No.
Yeah.
We
Too?
discussed bigger.
We discussed it,
we
but we should
haven't
double
put them
post it
up.
first, but
But they're,
Okay.
I'm having Amy
It's
go
like
to
Yeah.
Sweet's Corner at Harris is the one the county most recently did, so you can kind of look at what
Yeah, I remember those
that
ones.
escalation would be to,
Those are pretty visible, I remember.
so if you.
Well, I believe
just
those
go
are
ahead
the
and-
larger, and it's double posted.
Yeah, they are, yep.
Do they have two?
So as you approach, now this is what we're talking about. So now you've got the stop on both sides, so that one I think even says new at the top, but it's because cross traffic doesn't stop, little different configuration than what
Right.
we've got, but this is the stop on the right, the stop on the left. It says it's new, it's got reflective pieces on the post. This one, the cross traffic doesn't stop, so Harris is a through street, but this is where, the county had escalated. So this is what we're looking to do at, this intersection, that hopefully you get people's attention, and if you missed it on the right, then hopefully you do it, see it on the left, so.
I have a
right.
sign
That
underneath
might
that
work.
says cross traffic doesn't always stop.
I know. Cross-traffic.
I like Lori's idea, just, but until we can do that, we'll do the
Bang,
double
bang.
signs. Then
So-
we'll push it forward, Mark.
Okay, so if the committee's good, I know we've gone through this several times before, but I just wanted to reconfirm so we can again say we talked to the committee, and then we'll put it to resolution with the town board.
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
All right. Crestview Drive, I used to live on Crestview Drive. Children at Play sign.
I can handle that one. So the resident reached out with a couple concerns. One is that the speed limit sign on that road is actually blocked by some shrubs. They're just pretty overgrown. The town's gone out previously to handle that. Amy's showing you basically where the speed limit sign is, and it's bushes. So we've reached out to DPW, and they should be out to take care of that and have that resolved, as they have in the past. The other concern was speeding on the street, and because of that, they're looking for the slow down sign. As you enter the neighborhood from Creek Street, there's actually a dead end sign. And because it's just a dead end residential neighborhood, generally we wouldn't recommend putting child at play signs in those neighborhoods, just because it's clear you're coming off of a main road going into a neighborhood with houses that are actually relatively close to the road. So we wouldn't recommend a children at play sign. We would generally recommend for speeding concerns like that, whether we request the sheriff's office to come out for enforcement or do some education measures.
Is there speeders, are they complaining that it's like Amazon drivers or things like that? Or is it the residents? Because then it's one of their neighbors that's speeding.
They are not specific as to who, they are just concerned about children on the street and the dangers.
I know, you'd think it was a dead-end street, it's kind of safe to let your kids go out and play, because there's not going to be a lot of through traffic, but, do they have a neighborhood watch? That's what we did in ours?
I am not aware.
Okay. That might be a suggestion. It gets all the neighbors together, and when we were talking, we found out that it was one of the neighbors' sons that was, because we were describing the car, and he's like, that's stopping right now, I'll go home and take care of it. So it just might be something they could do.
Yeah, for the record, I do not live on Crestview anymore. Just one. But yeah, that's what I thought. It's, knock on the neighbor's door and say, hey.
Yeah.
So it sounds like this is shrubbery problem is,
For the speed limit sign is the
right.
big.
You could either move the sign,
Yeah.
or I don't know, I mean, it's clearly in the town's
Shrubs
right
almost-
away, just,
Yeah, the shrub's almost to the back edge of the gutter, so
well,
it's creating some sight distance issues probably for the neighbor backing out of their driveway.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
If I'm the neighbor, I can't see down the street to
Right.
back up, so it's creating, I mean, likewise, it's creating a sight distance issue for them backing out of the driveway the other way, so.
How much further
Remove
does
it.
the road go? Like how far till the dead end?
Not far.
I haven't actually
It's
measured it.
It's not that like they can get up to speed real
oh, no,
quickly.
it's
Not
it's
really.
curves, it's got back-to-back
Yeah.
curves, and then
Yeah,
you
so
get
we're
to
at the
the
beginning in that
cul-de-sac, so
view, but
Right.
Can't get away going that fast.
when I say it's pretty clear, you're entering a neighborhood, you're not, so for the children at play sign, we put those up in areas that
25 houses.
you're not expecting it to be kids playing or more of a neighborhood feel. This is clearly you're going into a residential neighborhood with a dead end sign on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're probably at or just below the speed limit. They're just probably accelerating pretty quickly through there.
And going around the curves, it's going to
Yeah.
seem like you're going faster or,
Cutting the curbs or.
you know.
So we will have the DPW take care of the speed limit sign as discussed. Are there any additional items or actions this committee feels are appropriate at this time?
That's fine.
Okay. We can reach back out to the resident and give them an update and let them know also like which meeting this was discussed at so they can view it if they'd like.
Great. Okay. Traffic concerns under other jurisdictions, Empire Boulevard.
So this, as we kind of spoke about a little bit earlier, this is a state highway, so Empire Boulevard, people had concerns about speeds going up and down the hill. So the resident initially reached out to the state DOT and asked them about putting a speed card out. They basically said, we don't have any. It can fall under the local municipality under permit. As we've stated previously, our speed cards otherwise disposed this summer. So I don't know if this is a location that the sheriff's office could help if their cart was available to put it out there, or we can see if the county's is available, to do that in that area. But we still need to work with the state DOT because it's on their road, it's in their right of way, so we'd need to get their permission or permit to do that. But at this point, we don't have a cart to make an application for. So fortunately, it's going to take a little bit with that. I also know the sheriff's office is, patrols that area, and speeding down Empire is, always a concern. So I'm sure they have a car on that and people kind of monitoring that and on a regular basis anyway. So hopefully between the two, but again, this is, I won't say a cut through, but it's a main corridor that gets you from east to west, and people use it at drive times and different times of the day. So it's just hard with the hill and the curves and the slope and everything else. It's lent itself to people going a little too fast at the bottom, and
Yeah, common problem.
so, yeah.
Okay, anything else with that?
Nope.
And the held items, anything to discuss?
So not tonight, just briefing
Yeah.
everybody that those are coming. I think Amy's shared many of them with the group already, so we're looking, and I think Sarah had offered to,
So I offered to send them as Google Docs so that the committee members can put comments in them ahead of time, which would help facilitate discussion at one of our next meetings when we review it.
so we'll get those out and kind of get that conversation started. I'm sure we'll have more items, others, just tonight's, with our 10 items, seemed like we didn't have a lot of time to get into those, talking about those new policies and everything else. We want to get those out to the committee ahead of time, and then we'll plan on at our next meeting kind of getting into those a little further and, fleshing those out and then making a recommendation to the town board that, hopefully the town board would look to adopt those.
Okay.
Were the other two are sent out? I have the marked crosswalk draft from June.
Yep, I think we just sent it out in June.
Was the speed hump and RFB policy sent out previously?
I don't believe.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Those will be coming to you shortly.
Okay,
so-
all right.
Yep. And then if we send that as a Google Doc, people can add questions or comments right in that, and then
Yes,
kind of have that, to open up the discussion at the next meeting.
good.
Okay. Anything specific for the lieutenant? to highlight in terms of speeding or?
I mean, I think there's a couple locations we talked about,
Yeah.
Empire, Terrell, is a highlight spot, and then, offline, we can talk about the availability of the speed cart, and if that's something we can
Yeah.
facilitate in locations of that, then we'll work with them on that.
Okay, any new business at all?
I just have a quick question
Yeah.
on State Road. You guys have oiled it. When are they going to stripe it? Because people are still all over the place on that.
I don't know the date of that, so then Tim can probably speak better to the
Is that a
process.
county
So they
road?
didn't, well, it is a county road.
Okay.
Not here at the county anymore, but they did
Yeah, I
an
know.
oil and stone, and then did a fog seal over the top of it. So that's kind of that was new to
That's
me.
a new thing, yeah.
A new thing. They used to do oil and stone and just leave it. This
Right.
new fog seal kind of one makes it a little darker, so the stripes show up a little better, kind of fills in some of the cracks. So I don't know if there's a time frame. You've got to let that kind of,
Yeah, I mean, once it's
Sit
cured,
a
it
minute
shouldn't
before they-
really matter on the time frame.
Okay.
The town has to center spot it before the county can put the marks down.
stripe it. So I
I
don't know
just
what
thought it would
the
be done
schedule is in
before
that.
school started, before the buses started running.
Usually the
Yeah.
county is the one that does the striping. It's not
Yep.
under us, so I guess I
Okay.
don't know what the timing is. But yeah, that's why that one looks a little bit different. I asked the same question and go,
I
okay, we
know.
oil and stoned it, and then all of a sudden we came along and then we
Yeah, I know, I thought that was weird,
fog sealed it, and I
too.
go, okay, that was new to me, so,
Yeah, it's new to me too.
okay. But I'll check on that and
Should be pretty
Find
quick.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Mary, you got anything?
No, the only thing I could think of was, did they do something to the humps on Huntington Meadow?
Oh, yeah.
What did they do? Because they look like they're shortened on the sides, and
It's like-
then they look flatter.
They look like, yeah, they're not as humpy.
It is humpy. Or bumpy,
So,
whichever they are.
They repaved the road,
Right.
which meant that the humps came out.
Right.
And then they replaced the humps to the federal detail for speed humps, which is more accurate to how they should be implemented than they previously were.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And do they stripe those or do something with them or no?
I'm
Just curious.
Previously, we've had arrows painted on the road ahead of them, and I want to say
There's
there's been
something
signs,
There's
but I
things.
haven't been out since they,
It's like a diamond that's at each side, so you know you're coming up on a
Okay.
hump.
Yeah.
just haven't been out there lately.
You mean you don't drive all over town?
I sure don't. Less so than I used to.
I haven't been through. Yeah, the previous ones were very non-compliant with
Very
standards of speed humps.
We were trying to get closer to where they should be, / exactly where they should be.
Yep.
Have the
It's not an
neighbors-
easy thing.
Have the neighbors complained about them being not so?
There is a concern from one resident in the neighborhood, just about speeding on that north end.
Yeah.
So we'll follow up and do counts. We've discussed that already.
Okay.
We didn't feel it was necessary, and they didn't feel it was necessary to bring to the committee at this time.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Okay, I'll close this meeting at 5:44.